I'm honored to have this last session for today. My name is Markus Vahtola. I'm from Shake, a mobile developer that was founded in 2015. And today I'm here to talk to you about data analysis and the insights that we've been getting at Shake while working on our titles. And also in the meantime, we also have built an in-house tool for doing analysis of the top crossing apps just to gain a market insight and understand what's going on the market, the current situation, and also to see what we can learn from other teams, what is great on their games and what is not. And today, I'm not going to talk to you too much about details of sentiment analysis. Of course, afterwards, we can discuss about the finer details, about topic extraction, entity, segmentation, clustering, all these. But here, I'm talking about more about the insights. Very quick intro about myself. I come from a marketing background. I used to do business consultancy, sales. I did a shift to games in 2012. In 2012 was a turning point in my life. I went to Brazil eventually to study games. And in the meantime, I started working on a consultancy work for the private and public sector. And even nowadays, I work as a data specialist for the public sector. But I focus on my games company, and that's my passion. So, talking about the timer, should it be running? At the bottom, it's not running, so I was thinking, okay, thanks. I want to present to you one question. While paying attention to the presentation, think and ask to yourself, do positive and negative reviews have an equal weight? And I want you to challenge your mindset about it, actually to try to push yourself to think both sides and the context as well. Because in some cases, there might be a thin line. Firstly, I want to present a little bit about top crossing today, what's out there. Top crossing 200 category, the top 10 games in that are responsible for 50% of the top 200 crossing revenue. It's a huge portion. It's really, really lucrative. And how some games are so really well performing while others are not. What is there so special about them? That's actually what really, really made us at Shake to be more data-driven and want to analyze what's out there to understand the market. Because if we want to perform well in the market, we have to understand it well. So we started to check around what's out there, and we found out that the main of the game is there. They are rated 4 stars. Of course, they're quality products. It's obvious that they should be aiming for that. They should even go past the market, but on average, the median is 4-star rating. And another thing there is truly obvious that they are social by nature. Nowadays, there's not even a slight chance almost to get to the top crossing if you are not social. Social features are so important. The best performing games become best performing games because people talk about them. They want to share about them. And oftentimes, they are, in fact, programmed and created to be enjoyed in a larger scale than just for a single-player experience. So they're socially engaging entertainment experiences. Interestingly, though, if we think about the marketplace, 67% of the top crossing list are games, actually. So games are ruling. And if we think about the history of the top crossing list, early days, Apple actually distributed a list of top crossing for each category. We analyzed it back then, but recently, I think it was 16th or 17th June this year, Apple pulled out that. So now they only provide a listing for the 200, general listing for 200 applications. But majority of that are games. And the earliest title actually dates back to 2010. That's 70 years on the top grossing list. That's crazy. And that's really interesting as well. And the most recent one was exactly 3 weeks released, 3 weeks ago released, and it's Rovio's new title, and reverse match. And that means that basically depending, to get to the list is really, really difficult, but you can get there. But it requires a lot of effort. And thinking about the revenue on the app stores available nowadays, on Google, it's 90% games. On App Store, it's 75% games. So games are generating a huge income. How to tap that and how to make that? Well, we first made an analysis of the spotting genres that are performing well, and also to see what genres perhaps have slots where we could target gaming. We found out similarities, of course, because most titles are released on both platforms. Interestingly though, you can see a little bit of a different kind of weight in the statistics, but that's natural. Due to the fact that on Apple, you can select a couple of categories per game, per title, while on Google, you're restricted just to one, a single category. So you have to be really, really careful about that you choose the correct category for your title. Because if the expectations for your game are wrong, it can make or break your game. So basically, you have to be really, really sure about the identity of the title. So, going to the sentiments. If we see about the top performing applications on App Store, we did the research on the US market, and we started seeing what are basically the reviews about. They are often just very, very brief comments about like, okay, this was good about the game, or neutral, just like, okay, I enjoyed it, but nothing like a really, really strong sentiment. So the large share of the reviews are just like low-level information. But then again, there are some that are really, really highly sentiment-rich, and those oftentimes are actually the most important share of the clients actually for the developer, because those people are so vested that on the mobile, they actually are putting the effort to write a really, really long review of the game, discussing what are their feelings about it. And our work is actually to help. We have a tool set that actually checks it out, immediately rules it out, and we can just see which is good, which is bad. And on those, I picked up the top 10 negative and positive sentiments, and it's probably not surprising that the negative ones that are most of the time appearing are related to disappointment with something that is not like according to our expectations. I later on touch upon that. But the psychological view is really, really strong. People do not like to see unfairness in a game. So cheating is bad, glitches and crashes that take away the enjoyment from the game, that is a huge no. But the positive thing is that I noticed that there's quite low portion of reviews that are negative. So we would say to get to the top grossing, you have to have a top-notch product, because there's really, really low share. But you also see that there's not much of people who actually go on lore. If a game is good, they oftentimes do not go there and write a detailed review about what things are spectacularly good about it. It's really, really rare. So, to understand better the market, we started to dig deeper, and we started to see about the ratings itself. And we found out that, okay, if we take all the reviews combined, 5-star reviews appear still 76% more likely on a top grossing game. But interestingly, the median review length is only 15 words. It's quite brief. It's a sentence or two. And Interestingly though, there are also those really long reviews that actually span over 1,000 words. Think about that. You write on a mobile device 1,000-word review. That must be that you have some vested interest there. You probably are a hardcore gamer who has played, spent money. There must have been maybe something, some patch might have broken it. Those kind of things you want to see immediately. And lots of data mining companies are doing this. But why we are doing this is that we notice that sentiment analysis on games is something so context sensitive that we need a better tool, a system that actually can be customized a lot and can be improved together as an industry. So we have been considering about releasing our work as an open source effort as well. But later on, I can discuss that with people who are interested in contribution. But let's go to the ratings. We took that median review length as a divider between short and long reviews. And there, we put those to be on the same scale. So you can see that, interestingly though, the share of 5-star reviews is much larger on short reviews, but it's also so that the other reviews are much less likely to appear. Their portion is very small. So what we get there is that oftentimes negative reviews hold more content value in themselves, while long reviews are oftentimes negative then in nature. But they also, what we found out is that oftentimes people express both sides. They express what is good and what is not. So you cannot only see the rating number, you actually have to do the sentiment analysis and see that. But there are some common pitfalls. The very same pitfalls that appear on the game design process. When you're designing a game, you have some bias in the team. But you usually might be taking psychology into gameplay, thinking about the confirmation bias, which means that people actually always focus on what supports their preconceptions. And this is extremely dangerous also on the data side, because if we are doing data analysis, we should evade bias at all costs. And this is why we have to go for artificial intelligence, machine learning, tools that can help us, but still without forgetting the human component, because if we go completely automatic, then there's really big probability of having systematic error as well, and then there might be bias because the programmers did not see everything so clearly early on, so they might have made some flaws in the algorithm. There's also expectation bias. So this means that we only notice the data that is in line with our expectations. So basically there might be signals, there might be outliers, like I said, about those really long reviews. What if we only pay attention to those then? It's also a risk. We have to see the whole picture. And that's as well a really important thing that we see about the availability heuristic. Availability heuristic is what I consider one of the most important things in the game design, because it's actually the human nature and tendency for overestimating the likelihood of events that are more recent in memory. What it means the probability that if, let's say, something happens in our nearly, like for example, all the time with repetition in the gameplay, people see that that's happening with a really high probability, but it might be later on not appearing at that high probability, but since it already was learned that that kind of a pattern occurred once in the game, that it could happen again. This is used a lot in the gambling games, for example. So people have the feeling all the time like, they're actually making more money and winning, although sometimes overall the house always wins, for example, like for example in roulette. So in this scenario, if you take this to data sciences as well, we oftentimes, at least what we found out on the commercial solutions, we take the industry standard metrics we do really important decisions based on those. And oftentimes they are good as a guiding value, but we also have to think about the context and also see sometimes that would there be more information available. Our reason for developing own in-house tool was actually that, because nowadays online is full of data. There's Reddit, forums, the different review platforms. There's so much things that oftentimes when you're designing a game, your team might be discussing some things that have been discussed in other teams already. Maybe there's already games published, and maybe there's already customers who have already expressed their ideas about those very same topics. And we wanted to bridge that gap. So this has been like a very, very interesting case for us, since we've been doing those games, and we noticed, like in some cases, that we actually managed to find out making some very same mistakes that some other teams have made, and having read it, we've been able to be more efficient, seeing like computer doing our non-biased analysis. This is like the normal portion of my presentation, but what I want actually to stress now is the first question that I presented to you guys. That was about, do positive and negative reviews have the same weight? This is just to inspire discussion now, because I want to take some questions, and especially if you or your team have been using some solutions, that would be brilliant to hear about use experiences as well. And if you want to contribute and start building a really, really high-level thematic, context-sensitive semantic analysis for game industry, get in touch with me and stay in touch with me anyways, because I always like to hear best practices from industry and trade some ideas what we've been doing. So thank you very much, and if you have some questions, I would love to take them now.
So are there questions? I almost thought that you put your hand up. Yes, just a second.
Yo, I just have a small question. Most of the data, like on those top things, they buy and sell the likes and reviews by botnets. Wouldn't that like affect in your data and analysis as well?
Yes, for that reason we had about the median length as well, and also about the review patterns, like basically outliers. You can do and recognize app-used reviews, and if you train the machine to rule them out, you can actually take subsets of data. So that is a very, very good question, and that's actually a topic and a really difficult challenge, because everyone can do different kinds. Someone could spam the reviews, for example, with longer, how would you say, well, much longer review lengths. One interesting fact also is that the reason why there are so many short reviews is also probably most likely due to most of the top-grossing games applying also the after a while of the player playing the game, you usually are presented a prompt about reviewing the game and giving a 5-star rating. So that is the very reason why there's so many 5-star ratings as well. But it's really hard to say, because there's so many things that actually can have been the cause. So yeah, that's one big challenge. And for that reason, what I was saying here was that actually this is not to be used only on the review data, but on any kind of a text data. So we actually it's a tool for taking away the human bias that we naturally and psychologically have, and instead use computers, algorithms to our benefit to do things that humans would spend hours and hours going through, days, months. We can get in a couple of seconds millions of reviews analyzed, and basically if we, as a joint effort, manage to get it so that we can even introduce context to that, it will be interesting to see if we are able to analyze and do clustering of teams, for example. And there are many commercial solutions, like I said, but so far they've been too strict on they are kind of like forgetting few important issues, and that's why I see the only possibility being an open source solution that would be as a joint effort done to serve every single company together. But thank you for the question.
Thank you.
A good challenge.